I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Oscar nominee Demi Moore. Firstly, Demi, congratulations on your Oscar nomination.
Thank you so much.
I mean, that this is such an exciting time. I can imagine that you're on a bit of a whirlwind. But let's go back to the beginning and tell us about your experience of when you found out you were nominated.
Well, it was that super early morning when they were making the announcements, and I had a lot of nervous excitement. But I just have to step back, first of all, and say so much of everything on this somewhat kind of magical, wild mystery journey here is just been so unexpected. And so I just like it's just so getting to that moment really was truly, truly just beyond anything I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, I think it makes it even cooler when it's unexpected. And I tell you, look, I just gotta be honest. Can I just say it's about bloody time. For those of
Oh,
us who have been a fan of yours since the 80s, because I am old enough, this recognition of your talent is so overdue. A Few Good Men, Ghost, Margin Call. We could be here all day talking about your career. I'm really happy for you. Just personally, that's you're someone that a lot of people really love. And I'm just wondering if that has occurred to you. Do you hear that a lot, maybe from colleagues, friends, and family who are hearing that as well, that people are really excited about you getting this recognition?
I am just so humbled by the reflection of just encouragement, excitement for me. I really do feel such a real genuine rooting for me, and it's really extraordinary. I'm and to your point of like I so appreciate hearing this idea that it's long overdue, and but I also really believe everything in its right time. Everything in its right time. I don't know why certain things maybe weren't as fully seen or fully appreciated uh, at its actual kind of time, but in a way it's irrelevant because we're here right now. And I really also see how everything I've done, the good, the bad, the in between, all of that has actually led to this moment. I love that. Clearly I'm not giving Pilaf the rubbing that she's asking. So I'm
Listen, we've got to have our priorities and dogs come first. So look, everyone
yes.
watching this, aware of that, okay? It's very
Yes.
important.
She was
Uh,
she was saying you can be talking about your Oscar nomination, but really this is about mine and I'm already a winner. She
that's
is.
right. He is. And Oscar Schmosker, just pat me. All right? That's what needs to happen. Um, so I'm thinking back to your Golden Globe win. That was a really big moment. A lot of people are still talking about how you gave this very, very eloquent speech about what you had dealt with in the past. You know, you have a charmed life, obviously, like many of us do, and we all count our blessings. But of course, there was some struggle and adversity that you had to overcome. And I sensed a real groundswell of support for you in that room. And when you talked about, you know, how someone once told you you will never be enough, and you implored the
Mm.
to know your value and put the measuring stick down. Um, was there a particular moment in your life or an event recently, or perhaps that where this mindset coalesced for you?
I don't know if there's like any one moment that you'd go, this was the epiphany moment. I think that it's part of our individual journeys that we're all on. And I feel like our chosen professions, the people in our lives, our families, our partners, that in a way that is all in service to what we're really here to do, which is to really step into the wholeness of who we are through a real sense of acceptance, and through that acceptance that opens the pathway to real self-love. And part of that is again, it's not one moment, it's all the moments along the way. As you said, that include facing real adversity, real challenges, the real lows. Because,
Mm.
it's in those moments that we are humbled, that we, I think, find a depth of compassion for
Mm.
ourselves. And as we find that for ourselves, we actually truly can hold that for others. And, if I look back over my whole life, I think I've always been a seeker of the truth. I think I find that in the roles I've chosen, when I've seen things that I feel are representing something that just doesn't seem just, or in fact, like, just doesn't make sense, or even if it's kind of the status quo, if it hasn't resonated for me because it didn't seem to be a truth. It might be what is, but that doesn't make it the truth. And so I feel like that has lent itself also in my own personal journey, of really seeking a truth. And, that awareness that came when that woman shared with me that idea. Of course, I was lamenting and on this idea of not being good enough. And this was really like, that conversation happened at least 20 years ago. And it gutted me because I knew what she was saying was the truth. When she said to me, "Oh, you will never be good enough," like, it hit me in the gut so hard. But the pause she took before she followed it with this idea, but you can know the value of your worth if you just put down the measuring stick. Again, I knew what she said was an absolute truth. There was nothing I had to kind of wrap myself around, try to make sense of, try to believe. It just was. And yet it still took time to allow that to unfold to a place that really became aligned with my own knowing of myself. And it's not, we're human. So it's not like, oh, I just got it and it's done. It's just, I think that is an ongoing journey.
I remember
Definitely.
watching the LA Times roundtable. Something you said really stuck with me. I think I watched it maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever it came out. And you said about the shifting of mindset, holding your own value and enriching yourself so you have something to bring to the table. Rather than looking outward for validation, you're looking inward. And I find it so interesting that you're talking about this self-actualization whilst promoting a film that, of course, is an indictment of all the powers around us that are fighting against that. I'm just curious if that has occurred to you over the last 12 months, that you're on this journey, you have been for some time, but this film is really very much about that too.
I mean, I think the thing for me, even as I read this script, I always felt the danger with this is if in any way this is about righteous victimization. I'm not interested in that. And I think, the thing for me is, yes, there are societal aspects and circumstance. There is a belief that, exists, and the least new information in this film is that, women of a certain age have been marginalized. Like, that is not new. That's, decades old. And I think, again, though, the real thing is that shift in not what other people are doing to you, but what are you doing to yourself? It's exactly what I was trying to say in my acceptance speech about this thing that was said to me. It's not what was said to me or who said it to me about being a popcorn actress. It's what I made it mean. Even though I may have taken it as he intended it, that doesn't necessarily make it true, but I made it true. I did that to myself. I then limited what was possible for me. And when I changed that, And I opened myself up, not to needing to be acknowledged, but to knowing that that is not exclusive to someone else, that is available to me too. That's not something that I'm, going to be denied, except if I believe that I'm going to be denied. So that's what I really felt was so important in this, idea that, look, in the same way we can look at society, we can look at people who've been really, hurtful or difficult in our lives. I really have come to learn that our tormentors are our mentors. In the same way, this is presenting a challenge, but that challenge isn't what we need to fight against. What we need to fight against is if we believe that is the only way that it can be. And if we shift that, like if women, just if we looked at the film, if women of a certain age hold their value and see and appreciate who they are, just as they are, not needing to be younger, not needing to be different, then in fact, I think the world will start reflecting that back, and they will the world will then, and like this social and beauty standards will reflect that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope, and that's the aspiration that I feel like, even though this film has a lot of really fascinating things to say about all of these concepts, I took away from the film that could be a possibility if we don't go down that path. I'm curious as well, when you are in a room with other actors, like for example those round tables, and you see the responses from them, really accomplished performers and artists who are gushing about, for example, your mirror scene that a lot of us love to talk about because it's such a highlight. I would instinctively shy away from that, not because I'm shy, but maybe because we all have that feeling of unworthiness within us. And I really, really loved and leaned into how you just took it on and thanked them and then talked about the mirror scene proudly. Um, is that ever going to get old, talking about scenes like that where people are just telling you how wonderful you are, and you just take
Oh,
that
I don't
on?
know. Well, first of all, I haven't watched that back. And
Yeah,
so your
it's really cool.
your memory of it is definitely more fresh. And yeah, I mean, it's funny. I haven't even, like, I didn't even connect with that part of it. For me, those dynamics were just so of pure joy to be with my peers and having that opportunity to connect and share our process, share, with one another in the work we do. We don't get that opportunity very often, except if we're with whoever we may be working with at that time. And so to come together, like, so for me, that's all I like can think about that. But to hear you say, what you saw and the reflection I hear you bringing forward was that these women I admire, women who I feel I learn from, who I've observed, who've inspired me, were prizing and appreciating me in that moment. Like I can't imagine anything like more uplifting and expansive to that idea that we're not in competition, we're actually in celebration.
Yeah, it was a really good watch, and that's been one of the highlights of this whole award season. I want to talk about how difficult this role would have been for you. Obviously, there are really obvious challenges like being in the makeup chair for hours and hours on end, and the subject matter and so forth. However, you are on you are on your own a lot in this movie. You've talked about this in the past, but I would love to further explore how, when you're not playing off another actor and you're on your own, it's you, it's Coralie Fagiat, the director, and some script guidance, I assume. There's so much going on, and the internal dialogue is so alive. But if the audience isn't really connected to what you're doing, then it's lost. So that was quite challenging, wasn't it?
I mean, I think the key for me, and I have talked about this, is that knowing that I didn't have the benefit of another actor to kind of feed or prompt or react off of, that for it to be alive, to have it be a fully realized character that was really grounded in reality, that I had to really have invested in every moment for myself before I ever showed up on the set, so that at every moment, I was connected, and it wasn't just what I was doing in that moment. It was, as I said, a full life and alive, because I kind of set it up so that I could be in dialogue with myself
Yeah.
silently, but where thoughts were alive, exchange was happening. And so that it wasn't like, my fear was that it could become repetitive or flat,
Yeah.
and 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 thereby tedious and uninteresting. And again, when you don't have, even like walking away, there were certainly days where I felt that, like, was that uninteresting? Was it like everything I was hoping? Because I also felt a huge responsibility as my contribution to this, to have it, that my job was to really bring the heart and anchor it in reality, so that it could go to those places that were so beyond norm reality,
Yeah.
go to those extreme, absolutely bonkers
Yeah.
places, but yet be anchored in something that stayed relatable, that it didn't get lost.
That's right. Because your really naturalistic performance as a vulnerable, deeply vulnerable and broken woman who is so beautiful, dressed beautifully, and yet doesn't believe she's beautiful. And we have to get that through a twinkle in your eye and your demeanor. That is really, really difficult to do. And I've heard that from many, many actors in the past. So I'm just wondering if there was anything in particular that you employed, perhaps maybe in conjunction with director Coralie Fagiat, to make sure that you were giving that to the audience without bashing us over the head with it.
I mean, this is such a personal story for Coralie. Her script was very detailed, because she's such a visual and symbolic storyteller. And so a lot of the emotional thread was really, in a way, left to me, or and to Margaret and Dennis. I knew, I knew that the technical kind of focus that she was gonna have, um, and so I really, I don't want to say I was entirely left on my own, but in terms of the kind of nuance, and it it was it was it was really all of the work I did seriously before I stepped on the set, even for day one. Meaning
Mhm.
I went through, you know, I didn't have the benefit in this of a character who had family, friends. I had I had the setup of somebody whose life is isolated, whose only relationship with the world is that of external connection, validation, her work. And so and in truth, it was the the beats of connecting to the need of love, the need of being seen, that all of that, and but finding true moments just that were in me, so that by the time I was there in those scenes, I could let it all go and just be present to whatever was occurring.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's an interesting thing that's just kind of come to me recently, particularly because obviously I have a lot of scenes looking in the mirror, which is not the most comfortable, um, which is how interesting it is that as human beings, our natural instinct when we look in the mirror is to not find what's right, but to find what's wrong. And that, you know, can then lead us down those dark kind of rabbit holes. And so again, some of that was just being present to where those moments took me and allowing myself to really open into those deepest, most vulnerable places of fear and insecurity and self-doubt. And to be able to share that, which I think is of our humanness that we all feel.
Yeah. And being exposed like that on screen, I could imagine could be quite terrifying. And in this context,
You're
I love
definitely right about that.
that's terrifying to me. And Coralie, I just love her neo-expressionist style. She employs external expression of Elizabeth's psychological state and perception through the distorted reality of the spaces she inhabits. And the symbolism, the aesthetic is so strong. It's so beautiful in this film, strikingly so. I just wonder if any of that ever informed what you were doing, or did you let other people, the creative team, deal with that while you just focused on her own emotional internal state?
I mean, I think the thing, again, because the script was very detailed, she wanted everyone to really know what she was wanting to accomplish. I went into it knowing that there were going to be heightened aspects through super, hyper close-ups, that sound was going to be amplified and intensified. And having seen Revenge, I definitely had a real sense of the tone and sensibility of how, she likes to kind of get to a certain interior. So I think I had that in my awareness of like, okay, there are aspects where I will be supported, even though I'm not supported in a traditional way, say with another actor and so I had complete trust in that, like knowing that there would be certain, balance found. But really in terms of a real emotional thread, that I think was really up to me
Wow.
to kind of find and deliver.
Yeah.
I
And that's a
knew
lot
that
of
it was
pressure.
important because if it stayed too surface, this still would have been an entertaining movie, but pardon the pun, the substance of it could have gotten lost. The
Yeah.
real depth of what this was delving into could have gotten diluted. And in truth, I read this script and was like, wow, this could be so amazing. And truly it could have been a disaster because the delicate line that it had to kind of walk, in terms of those moments where it shifted gears from something that was a little bit more based in reality to that which is completely outside of our reality. Um, and I think that she, really did so brilliantly. This is a true cinematic experience. This is, I'm so proud to be part of something that is opening the perspective that it's, that when you bring something that's real and relatable, it doesn't matter what genre it is. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
and that in fact, it can take you, as I feel like this film does, you know, it's almost as it goes to those extreme places where you can't believe it could get any weirder, and it does. But that in fact gives you that reprieve to really absorb the intensity that you experience in the first 2/3 in a way that's like, let me laugh, let me have a break. And in a way, that is the break from the very intensity that we all live in the process of our own self judgment.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of genre, as a final question, I feel so vindicated as a fan of the horror genre that this film is really gaining traction, both commercially, critically. It's winning awards, your recognition. We've seen people like Toni Collette and Lupita Nyong'o ignored in the past for beautiful performances in horror films, but you're there representing, you said so at the Critics' Choice Awards. That is a really cool thing, isn't it?
It's incredible. And I was so flustered at the Critics' Choice that I hoped I had made real sense, because what had struck me was my appreciation for the critics and the media, because the response of embracing this film, embracing my performance, really is the healing balm to the very issue that is being brought forward. Like it struck me so, like I was almost overwhelmed with going, here's like, that actually is the antidote. The fact that it's being seen. We actually could be part of something that creates a cultural shift, not just in the issues around aging, beauty standards, and self-worth, but in opening up and expanding the pathway of cinema. Man,
Yeah.
I'm like feeling just overjoyed and through the roof with excitement.
Yeah. Who would have thought it would be a Demi Moore vehicle in a body horror classic that reinvigorates the It's all on you. It's all
I
on you.
mean, I don't know. I just feel like I'm showing up and I'm really trying to be in service to whatever this is connecting with, because it feels so much bigger in truth than all of us even involved in the film. It
Yeah.
feels like it's, and the fact that it's connected with young people, like you saying your children, like that, that has been, I think, for me, the most impactful, because we're planting a seed in young people to shift how they're holding themselves. And as I truly believe, what other people do or don't do is irrelevant, but how we hold it is everything. And that also applies to ourselves.
Sure does. Demi, I wish I had hours to talk to you. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye, but thank you again and congratulations. I loved this performance. I love this film and I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your support and encouragement.